I just realized I've been blogging full-time now for around 4 years, so I wanted to share some of the things that I've learned down the road and things that I do differently now. So if you are a full-time blogger yourself or you want to become one, there might be some good tips for you in this video. And I also want to share some of my first failed attempts and some of the stuff that I learned. And finally, I want to talk about some of the routines that I'm changing right now with my team and with my workflow and how I approach full-time blogging today. So first, let me share a little bit about where I came from when I started full-time blogging, because that will explain some of the stuff that I had to learn to make this work. So I started out in e-commerce and I wanted to start an online store for a long time, and finally I did so in 2007. And even before that, I started a few websites that went absolutely nowhere. So the first serious attempt to do something online to make a full-time living from was an e-commerce store. So we did that for a couple of years. And I found myself only working in the SEO department of that company after a while. So we quickly had 10, 15 employees. And then I just focused 100% after a while on SEO and got somebody else to run the company, and eventually left the company just to focus on SEO because we had a pretty good SEO department where we were helping other businesses in our city. So I quickly transitioned into a full-time SEO, you can say, with clients, and I did that for around a decade. And alongside that, I built up our own blogs. So the first blog, you can say, content-based website that didn't sell anything, that just talked about stuff, was a Danish tech site, and I still have this site. So it's not doing super well anymore because now we 100% focus on an American audience. So in Denmark we have 5-6 million people, so obviously it was a real struggle to get a lot of traffic on that site, and we needed to touch on some of the meaty topics, talking about cell phones and internet and computers and just really general stuff. And something to know about Denmark is we have a lot of people who knows about blogging. We have a lot of good SEOs here. So it's really hard to get your hands into anything because most of the topics were already written. So we're talking 2012, 13, 14, so it's quite a while back. That also sort of forced us to do something in English because we did get some traffic with the site. We became one of the bigger tech blogs in Denmark, but then we couldn't really take it any further. So that's the first learning, was to be in a big enough market that you can actually grow to become a full-time blogger and sustain that growth over time. And a little side note here, we actually managed to get a really good, decent full-time income from this Danish tech blog. But since I had these SEO clients that paid so well and they got bigger and bigger, it still took a long time before I went 100% full-time with blogging, because I wanted to still work with some of these clients. One, they paid well, and also it was really, really good network to work on some of the biggest sites in Scandinavia. So we started blogging in English, and we started the site Go Downsize that I also talk about on this channel once in a while. And it actually started out with an idea Maria, my wife, had about doing sort of an online catalog to help people find cool furniture that help you live in a small space. So we always lived in the city, and Maria studied architecture, and she was also working with boaters, figuring out how to cram a lot of function and stuff and people into smaller boats. So we started writing about that on the site. Whenever we would come across something cool, we'd talk about it, and we did these list posts also, 15 folding tables or 7 cool furnitures for a small living room. So that started to take off. But the thing is that this first tech blog in Danish, and also Go Downsize, our first real attempt to create something in English, they were 100% affiliate sites. So we didn't have display ads on them. It sort of forced us to write review style articles and always talk about products, a list of products, and 7 products with this feature or without and such. So we got really creative talking about affiliate products. But what really started to take off was when we discovered display ads. And there was a huge eye-opener when I saw how AdSense had changed and has evolved into what Mediavine and AdThrive and so is doing with display ads today. Because back then, I don't think there was really any auction going on. So the thing is, today when you have display ads on an article, the text will load first with all these empty spots for the ads, and then there'll be a real-time auction driving up the price, which means that today you can make a really good living from just display ads. So 7-8 years ago, I think I started mostly just using the Google autocomplete method to type something into Google, see what Google wants to suggest that I would finish the sentence off with, and then going off of that, then I would take these topics and sentences and ideas and pop them into Google, just search for it and see what the competition was. So of course, if Forbes or another really big site already wrote the article, we would skip to the next one. And then I came across a video from Income School where Jim and Ricky talks about how keyword tools are completely off. And the thing is, I would take all these topics and throw them into the keyword tools to see if they had any traffic. And then I would sort all the good stuff out because I could see they had little or no traffic when you looked into tools. And Jim and Ricky showed how you can sort of take these, you want to call them zero search volume keywords, or really just smaller topics or long tail traffic or whatever. Take these really small questions that don't have any traction in the tools. They would say like 0 searches per month, and then write on them anyway. And we started getting a lot of traffic from these articles as well. So there's a whole new well of articles to dive into. And I started to realize that Google was getting smarter, and it was not so much about a single keyword or a single phrase, but it was actually more about topics now. And that whole shift happened for me like around, I think, I took a note here, I think I found a video from Income School in 2017 or 2018. So now all of a sudden we started writing on everything we could get our hands on if the competition was low. And as long as we figured this would be something a reasonable human being would wonder about at some point. So this whole shift from keywords and single phrases you wanted to put into every part of the article and optimizing for keywords and phrases and sentences, that shift moving from there to topics and just talking about exactly what people search for, and then trusting that Google would actually figure out and decipher what the article is about. That was a huge change, and something that really changed how we started to do topic research for our sites. So now let's talk a bit about how my operations in our company looks today. So today I have more than 20 freelance writers and 3 editors who take good care of them. So they are all divided into different sites and different stuff they know about. So we more and more tend to hire writers who have some sort of expertise. And then we also have a few fact checkers that once in a while will go in with, so they have of course really high knowledge. It might be an engineer or somebody who did something for a long time or have a long education within a field, just to fact check that the articles we write are good. Because a lot of the stuff that we write about today is something that I personally know very little or nothing about. So we need to make sure that the content is good, that we're not all of a sudden slipping down a road with bad writers. So that did happen to us actually on Go Downsize. We had quite a lot of boating articles at one point that had some bad information. So I had boating engineers going over hundreds of articles, and that did cost some money, but it was really, really important to get these quality checks in place in order to scale our business at that point. And then I also have another very vital person on my team. So she's helping me sometimes now to do the outlines. So I will still find all the topics, all the main headlines you can say of the articles, and many times she'll go in and figure out what each article should be outlined and which direction we should take it, plus a lot of other stuff that came up as I started during my course that I sell here via my YouTube channel. But in relation to blogging, that's basically what the staff looks like now. And at this point, we are publishing around 200 to 300 articles per month. So it's quite an operation, and you see why we do need fact checkers and somebody to really take good care of each and every article and make sure they are the best that they can absolutely be. So as I was planning this video, I was thinking about what's next, what might be down the road next year or maybe even this year for us as we continue to grow our company here with our sites. And I think something that's been more and more on my mind would be to open sort of like a writer studio, open physical location where people would go there and write for us. So it's not something we're doing right now, but it's something that I always wanted to do because I think it would be so cool to go somewhere and work with the writers and the editors and just make sure that everything is as good as it can be. Because it's something to teach an editor or a writer over the web and with videos and Zoom calls, but it's just a whole other thing to sit with them one-on-one and show them why this article is better and why I would change this section and why this subheading should be changed to this. I think we'll just get a better overall quality and better output and less editing if we could build like a writer studio like that. So that's something that I'm thinking about. And another thing that I'm talking with Maria about constantly right now is to focus on less sites. So build like fewer sites that are bigger. So right now we have quite a lot of sites. Some are just sitting very, very passively on the shelf, but we are actively working on 5 sites right now. And sometimes it would just be really cool to just work on 1 or 2 really big sites and throw all our focus and attention into that, create a huge YouTube channel for it and just go all out in one niche or one vertical, you can say, and just create the absolute best killer site that you could possibly imagine. So I think that's down the road for us to really zoom in and not create like 4 or 5 bigger sites at the same time, because obviously our attention and our focus is split between these sites. So even though I have people 100% dedicated to each site, they just don't have the experience that I have building these sites from scratch and the SEO background and that attention to detail that you have when you are the business owner yourself. And then finally, I'm starting to look into other ways of doing topic research other than Google autocomplete, and people also ask. So there are other techniques that I also show in my course, but I'm trying these days to dive deeper and look into what could topic research look like in the future when most of the Google autocomplete topics have been swooped up by some of these massive companies now going after everything informational and educational. And I think within a few years we need to do something else and get more creative and just use other methods than just looking into Google autocomplete, and people also ask like everybody else. So that's been working really, really well for a while, and I still see it work for many years to come, especially in some niches. Of course, there will always be niches that haven't been touched much, but you have to dig deeper and you have to be better and better at topic research. And it's also something that I geek out about in my course. So that's definitely something that's also on my mind and something that I think will be changing in this business model. I think we'll have to spend more time and other tactics and techniques in order to find really good topics to write about. But also focusing on fewer, bigger sites will also enable us to gain more authority with these sites, so we can compete for the bigger topics and we don't have to go for underserved topics. Even though I always do that, even for our biggest sites, I still go and scoop up all the underserved topics that I can, because we just rank so much faster. Many times they have a lot of traffic anyway. It's not like the biggest topics are the ones that have been taken by the big sites. Many times some of these small long tail, zero search volume, whatever you want to call them, topics that you would think have little search volume, many times they'll get many thousands of clicks per month. So they still surprise me sometimes. So I'll definitely still do the Google autocomplete to the extent that it makes sense, but I'm also starting to look into other things. So of course, stay tuned for this channel here if you want to learn what I find out. And also, of course, if you want all the details, there's my course that you can look into. So let me know in the comments where you are at in your journey. If you are full-time, does any of this ring true to your business as well? Are you seeing some of the same changes in the industry? And where do you think it's all heading? What are the biggest challenges? Put that in the comments. I answer each and every comment on this channel always, but I cannot do so for all the videos now that there are hundreds of videos. So leave your comment always on the latest video, and of course I'll check all the comments in this video until there's a new video coming out, hopefully next week. So I'll see you guys.